18 years ago, I delved into one of the most formative games of my childhood, one of my absolute favorites, one that we played almost nightly. It was the height of the Xbox 360. I even remember getting the Halo edition for Christmas, but there was so much hype around it. Everyone I knew was playing it, some of the greatest game modes, some of the greatest gaming moments on I think, one of the greatest gaming consoles. Jump to 18 years later and the mad lads over at Mantic Games are releasing Halo Flashpoint, a tabletop game in which we get to take on these characters again, play these silly game modes, and most importantly, have a ton of fun. But we are going to talk about it, we're going to break it down, we're going to go through the game, and I'm going to give my thoughts on whether I think it might be the game for you. I think maybe we start with the easiest and possibly most important part of the review is the game is just fun. You're going to build a team of Spartans, so you can take them with different weapons. You can even take Master Chief. He does count as 2 characters, and there's some elites that can do that. Hopefully we see some more added. They are releasing quite a lot with the game, so there's a lot of stuff coming out already. They've got the neoprene maps. They've got some extra characters. They've got some options, so you can build some more interesting and dynamic teams. So immediately, the game being supported, it being a ton of fun, is a massive positive. You're going to take your team of Spartans. You're going to run around a map, pick up weapons, pick up upgrades, shoot your opponent, have them shoot back at you, maybe get into a fist fight, maybe pick up a gravity hammer. Maybe you get to do all of these things that you would have done in the video game in this tabletop game. It's very quick, turns are fast. I wouldn't say it's overly complicated. There's not a lot to learn. There's not a lot that you can really get wrong. Obviously, with any game, the keywords are going to be the difficult one. Just having to flip back and forth, as you would with any game. Obviously, the more you get used to it, the more you get to remember those. There's a ton of combinations, a ton of different weapons, a ton of upgrades, a ton of variety for each game. There's even different game types, some that are all out war, some that are oddball, which is one of my personal... Is it oddball? It is oddball. One of my personal favorites from the game, where you have to carry the skull around. I have heard of people playing more than 2 player. I think at Gen Con they did some kind of variation. We've actually played a few times as 4 player and 3 player, and it's been fun. I will say there's some things, if things are spread out and you respawn, it can feel a little unfair how you respawn, but again, that feels very much like the video games. It feels very much like things like Halo, Call of Duty, any of those multiplayer onlines where if you are all spread out, you can't, there's going to be a bad spawn at some point. There's going to be something that doesn't feel great, maybe you hadn't planned for. Yeah, even the negatives, I think, do feel very much like the video game. Let's talk on components then. So in the box itself, you get a ton of stuff. You get the miniatures, you get all the cards and dice and even terrain. So this 3D cardboard stuff is fantastic. The fact that you get all of this in a box. Now, this is the Spartan edition, so there are various editions where you won't get Master Chief, you won't get some of the extras like the terrain. You can, like I said, they are bringing out firefight teams, so you can just buy those teams outright. There's a few different ways to do this. But in the main box itself, the Spartan edition, again, all the miniatures, all the terrain, all the dice, all the cards, everything you need to play. You really don't need to buy more than this, honestly. You could just buy this as a standalone board game. And that might be what I do. I might end up grabbing some of the neoprene maps just to have a slightly better experience there. Maybe upgrade some terrain. Although I say that, like, I don't need all of these armies for these various games, but I get them. So no doubt I'll do the same with Halo. Mantic are a great company behind it, so there's going to be a ton of really cool stuff coming. So going against what I just said, I will be keeping an eye out for that. I will be doing some battle reports on the channel as well, just so you guys can get a feel for the game. I will say, if you're a big miniature painter, maybe you're from Warhammer, these miniatures are going to feel... They're not going to feel great in comparison. There's not much detail on them. They don't feel great. Some of the bases have started warping already. There's not a ton you can actually do with them, but there's not much to a paint scheme of a Spartan anyway. Obviously, the Master Chief looks a fair bit better. Also, the elites do look good as well. I think these are the Banished. So, yeah, the stuff does look okay. It doesn't look bad, but I think if you're coming from a game with a ton of detail, this one is obviously more of a board game, so it's a lot less focused on that, more about the gameplay and this, like I say, this very tight package with everything in that you need. I mean, I haven't painted these up yet. I'm not overly excited to paint them either. They are just going to be a slap of one color and then maybe their visors and some of in between the armor. So it's going to be fairly easy to paint, I think. I guess that is a positive. If you're coming into this as a board game and not really into the hobby side of things, then it's perfect. You could honestly just hit them with a spray can, then pick out some of those, like I say, black Under Armour areas, and you're good to go, honestly. So the game is fun, the package is great, but how does it actually play? So basically, once you've made your teams, you've set up the terrain, you've done all the board, You're going to spawn in as you would in the video game. As I say, around the map, you're going to have the option to pick up upgrades. You're going to have the option to pick up weapons. Maybe on certain objective modes, you can do other things like pick up the objective, and obviously there's capture the flag, there's oddball, so there's a few different things you can do. You're going to get to make a couple of actions. Now, normally it's going to be a combination of a move and a shoot, or maybe a move and a melee if you can get up close, or maybe just a double move. You have a short and a long move, so you do have options if you just want the mobility. I will say in our games, because we've done bigger games, the spawning has been a massive issue. I did mention that before, but obviously I think anyone that's coming into this is going to be looking for that multiplayer experience where it is multiple players. It's not just you and one other player. So I will say, although it does work, it is you can feel very hard done by with the spawns as in comparison to the 2-player where it's not quite as bad. You can move up and down terrain, you can hide behind things. Where you're placed in your square actually has some impact, so you might want to hide behind something, so if someone's shooting you, you get some extra dice. And the dice themselves are fantastic to roll. Not only is there like exploding 8, so if you roll a crit, which is basically an 8 on your dice, you're going to get to roll another one, and that can continue. You could roll another 8 and keep going. Obviously there is a ton of luck involved there, but it adds that epicness, it adds that, like, you keep rolling 8s and everyone's cheering, it adds those big moments, which is why you play these tabletop games. So having that moment where you fire, maybe you fire your sniper, you need to take them out before they grab your flag, and you just keep rolling those 8s. There are keywords obviously that you can crit on 7 or 8, so there's ways to modify things. There's other keywords where you get extra dice, or it's easier to hit, or maybe you reduce their shields. Because although you're firing a ton in this game, there is a ton to defend. You have built-in armor, you have built-in shields, and then you've got quite a bit of health anyway. But it can be very difficult to take somebody out. It's one we're definitely going to play again and a few more times, and I really want to, like I say, get a battle report at some point. I want to try and get the rules down as much as possible. Obviously, I can give my initial thoughts here, but to do the battle report, I do want to make sure we've got everything in line. Maybe get them painted up ahead of time. Speaking of Mantic Games though, I've also got Walking Dead, which I want to do the same with. So if you do want to see more tabletop stuff, more board games, card games, all of that stuff, make sure you're subscribed. If you've been watching the channel for a while and you want to support me, there is a Patreon down below, which is a couple of quid a month. When I do my battle reports, you are assigned a character and you earn points depending how they do. I pick someone after a few months and then send them out some goodies for the game they enjoy. So the options there, it's not necessary. Thank you if you made it to this point, and a like and subscribe goes a massive way if not. That's all I've got for this episode though, so I will catch you in the next one.